Real people, real radio.
Initiating the truth frequency.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
Guys and gals, it was Donny Gilson here again, right here on Kbeach, right here, KKJZ, HD3 Long Beach, Los Angeles, 88.1 FM, along with Truth Frequency Radio Network. Oh, yeah, the general manager says he can hear me clear as day. Sounds good. Guys, it is wonderful to be here on Kbeach. We have been doing this 32 Degrees of Insanity show over on the Truth Frequency Radio Network for the last couple of years. And, hang on. I'm what? I'm looping. So you can hear me.
No, I can't. Now you're good.
Now I'm good? Are you sure? Yes?
Seems like you're good.
Am I good?
Nope.
I'm not. I'm looping. All right, let's see what we got a couple things that we're going to do here to try and figure this out. Okay, let's see here. How about now? If I take that off, I think we've got it right now. What we're doing is we're simulcasting this on the Truth Frequency Radio Network, and we're also bringing it right here at Kbeach. So there's a little bit of a trial and error that we're trying to do here. Not looping this time? It's still looping. Okay, so let's try something else here. We'll be right back here on 32 Degrees of Insanity as we try to figure this all out here. Hang on a second here. And Chris says I sound fine on that way, but I'm looping out here. I should be on a delay, Trey. I should be a little bit on a delay. And actually, Chris Geo says that I sound good going out on the feed. Am I looping out there in the officer? It's looping. It's looping over there. So he's going to check and see how it goes out there. And we're trying our best here to get it going because it's for some reason while we're doing the studio here, we're hearing something out there in La La Land, and we're also seeing what's going on here. Okay, so we've got that going on. We got that going on. Let me, I'm going to bring Chris Geo onto the show. Chris, you there? You there, Chris?
Hey, Donny, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Is it? It's still looping. So what's happening out there? So you say, Chris, I sound fine coming from your side.
Yeah, you're not looping at all. As a matter of fact, you sound crystal clear. You sound crystal clear and coming through our system just fine.
And but coming over our system, it sounds like I'm looping outside the studios, right? Excuse me?
Are you looping in the Skype?
No. The Skype. I guess we could send. I wonder if we do this. How about that? See if that will, because this should be going in the main log, and the way we had this all set up, we had it set up yesterday to get it. That solved it. All right, so it looks like we're raring to go. Okay, sounds perfect. All it was just a moving in the pod thing. Chris, we're here on FM radio. Can you believe it?
Congratulations.
Hey, this is going to be a good show. I mean, we're going to be trying some new things. Coming up next week, we're going to do a big 9/11 show with Alfred Lambert Weber. Alfred's going to come on. We're going to talk about some new developments with 9/11, with the Inside 9/11. A lot of people out here that have listened to Kbeach for some time haven't been exposed to what we call the truth movement. You want to tell my audience a little bit about Truth Frequency Radio?
Sure. Truth Frequency started back in 2009 as a radio show. Sheree and I were both in the same field of research, and so it was just a natural progression just to start a radio show when we got together. We thought that that's where it was all going to stop, that it was going to be a blog talk show and something we did just for a hobby. But over time, it picked up so much interest, and we started covering so many different topics that we actually evolved into a 24-hour full-time network. And that's at truthfrequencyradio.com. We've got a fantastic lineup of people. I mean, people from all different walks of life. We have Joe Bannister, who's a former IRS agent. He's currently battling the IRS in a legal situation that he's in. In a civil situation. But they actually came after him criminally, and he beat them criminally. So now they're trying to throw whatever they can under the kitchen sink as far as the civil lawsuits go. But he's a very brave man. He's risking everything just to make a point and make a stand. And as an IRS agent, he went to his bosses and asked them, hey, is there a law to pay taxes? I haven't been able to find one. Can you provide me one? And they told him to shut up, and he didn't want to shut up. And so he gave him 6 months or 8 months or something like that to produce it. Never produced. They weren't able to produce it. And so he quit. And he was featured in America from Freedom and Fascism with Aaron Russo. If people haven't seen that, I definitely recommend that film first and foremost, because that just opens your eyes up to a lot of the baseline of information that we deal with, the Truth Frequency Radio. And the basis of it really comes down to the idea that the economic system, and the governments are all ran completely fraudulent. For instance, the IRS. You actually pay 33 to 40% of your income that goes directly into the pockets of Federal Reserve bankers. It doesn't go to pay for any kind of government service. So a lot of people say, well, it's patriotic to pay your taxes, but it doesn't go to any government service. And this was proven by Ronald Reagan with the Grace Commission and the Grace Report, which showed that the way money works, I mean, everybody knew this, but the income tax is actually a direct percentage in relation to what you're paying in taxes to what you're paying interest back to the Federal Reserve. So we borrow $1 from the Federal Reserve. That comes at interest. So the United States can just do it themselves. I mean, we can just print our own money, but we just don't do that. We hire this private banking institute. They're about as federal as Federal Express. They're not federal at all, even though they're called federal. So we borrow $1 from them, and then we owe them $1.30 or $1.40. Well, where does the other 30 and 40 cents come from to pay back the debt? Well, we have to keep on borrowing more money, and we have to keep on borrowing more money. It's a never-ending cycle, and that's why we have inflation. If inflation is by design, because every time we borrow money from the Federal Reserve, more money goes into the money supply, and therefore the value of the dollar starts to go down, because the only thing dictating the value of the dollar is how much money is in circulation. And so we keep on borrowing and borrowing and borrowing, and then all the prices just go through the roof. But we also pay back that interest. And that's the kicker here, is that your income tax dollar goes to pay back the interest. That's it. We don't need the Federal Reserve. It's completely robbery, but that's what's happening. And Joe Bannister is somebody that has stood up and fought against this. And some other great hosts. I mean, we cover so many different things. Kev Baker, right out of Scotland, he does a live show 5 days a week, and he's always covering groundbreaking information and news and analysis. And it's really a global community. We have Christopher Everard. He lives in the south of France, and he's actually from the UK. We've got several others. I mean, just go to truthfrequencyradio.com. Check out the lineup. One of my favorites is Susan Lindauer. She's a former CIA agent, and she was actually involved with trying to convince Muammar Gaddafi to go to have this international trial during the whole Lockerbie scandal. And the way that she was trying to convince him is saying, look, we know that you're innocent, but the only way that they're going to be convinced is if you go to this international trial. And of course, he was like, hey, whatever. And so they wound up locking her up after several years because she started speaking out on issues. She started speaking about what's going on in Libya or what's going on in Iraq, that the Iraq war was a fraud. And she started revealing information that she wasn't supposed to reveal. So they put her in jail, put her in prison for like 2 or 3 years. It was ridiculous on nothing. I mean, they locked her up in the equivalent of Guantanamo Bay under the Patriot Act. There weren't really any formal charges or anything like that. Finally, several years later, they released her, and now she is screaming from every rooftop that she can.
Well, there's been so many different kind of false flags too happening lately. We talked about, we did a whole show on Fort Knox and how the Fort Knox hasn't even been audited since 1973 or something to that nature there? Was it 1973 was the last time the Fort Knox has actually been audited? Or
I believe so. They've taken all the gold.
Right.
We don't have any more gold.
Yeah, Fort Knox is completely empty of gold.
We invaded Gaddafi because he had a system set up over there that really made us nervous. And we kept trying to go after Gaddafi, starting back in the 80s. We set up the whole bombing of the airplane. And then George Bush Sr., if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, Sheree, actually assassinated Gaddafi's
baby daughter.
Daughter, yeah. And it didn't assassinate her on purpose, but they were trying to put a hit on Muammar Gaddafi, and they wound up blowing up his little girl as a result. And so there's one video that's really telling about who Muammar Gaddafi was, and that was back in the 70s, where his mother's crying right when he took over or liberated Libya, however you want to look at it. Yeah, and his mother's crying, and she's saying, I don't understand. My son won't buy us a house. He won't allow us to live in a house. He says we have to live in a tent until everybody in Libya has a house first. So that's the way that he ran his country. Gas was 17 cents a gallon. Healthcare was free. It rivaled ours. Most of the population was upper middle class. Everybody got a paycheck, a deposit in their bank account every single month based on the nation's oil reserves. Electricity was free. Housing was a right. When you got married, you got $50,000 to start your marriage with. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to farm, then you got land and you got equipment. I mean, he took care of his people, and that's why he had no army to defend himself with. Well,
I remember when I was a young kid, I was very young in the 1970s. I remember Gaddafi. I actually kind of liked him. I thought he was kind of a cool guy. Same with the Shah of Iran back in that time. I mean, the whole...
Well, we installed the Shah. We took out Mossadegh, and this was a CIA plot. We went over there, we committed a bunch of false flags, and then we started passing out all kinds of leaflets and pamphlets and stuff saying, down with Mossadegh, et cetera, and created this whole upheaval over there. But we really actually did that in order to install somebody who would be more financially friendly to us with Iran's oil. Now, there's so many different levels. It's not just oil, but there's resources. And Libya, for instance, Muammar Gaddafi was tapping into all the water that was underground and he was sitting on one of the biggest freshwater reserves. He was also going to he had 22 tons of gold, and he was going to take that gold and circulate it around Africa and make the African Union. And he wouldn't take any dollars for his oil anymore. He only wanted gold. That's something that Saddam tried to do as well. Saddam would only take euros, so we bombed the hell out of him, and Libya would only take gold, and so we bombed the hell out of him too. And you can see both of those countries are back to the Stone Age now because we can't allow anything to jeopardize that petrodollar.
Oh, well, that's... I was looking at an old picture the other day of gas prices, and I don't get how we get to this $4, $5 a gallon with all these taxes that we pay, and we still say that we're in the red, that we haven't been able to pay off a deficit. Where's money going?
There's a Vaseline shortage. That's the problem. And so, they ran out of Vaseline, and so now you're just taking it from the back. Because, I remember how the gas prices used to work. You'd have a barrel of oil that's sold for $20, and the gas prices are supposed to be 89 cents a gallon, $1.25 a gallon. And then that skyrocketed up to I think at one point in time it was like $350 a barrel. Yeah. And so we were paying $4 at the pump. And so you could see some kind of